All right, well, here we're with Rob Parton here. He's a jazz trumpet professor at North Texas. Rob, thanks for joining me, man.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. This is fun.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity, specifically for us to catch up because a lot of times we don't get a chance to speak at conferences, especially like a TMEA, in San Antonio. We would just kind of pass briefly, said hi, and especially this TMEA this year was crazy nuts. I don't know if there was more people. There's usually like 28,000 people, but it was a lot. It was pretty busy.
Yeah, it was my first TMEA, and I have never seen anything like it. My dean told me, he goes, Midwest. He goes, TMEA is bigger than Midwest, and
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And then when I saw you guys, it's always the same thing. Every time either Midwest or national trumpet competition, I always see you guys, but you guys are so busy with with all the people around. I never really get a chance to just hang out and talk. So
Yeah.
this is gonna be cool.
It is cool. And, Midwest is the same thing when Peter told me years ago. He's like, oh, TMEA, it's like two Midwest. I was like, yeah, whatever. But
Right.
he's right. He's absolutely right. And then, so first thing, we got a couple questions here. Is how are you doing? How is Texas? How's UNT Studio? How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. I think the biggest this has been the most crazy year of my teaching career ever. I mean, a year ago I was offered this. Just about a year ago, in a couple days, I was offered this job, and the job was a professor of or jazz trumpet lead emphasis. So that was how. Because they did a search also for jazz emphasis. So there's two of us that are new, and that's Philip Dezak, who's an amazing jazz trumpet player. So I got here. We moved in July, and it was like 107 degrees as we're moving stuff. It was really crazy. And then the school year started, and it was great. I was directing the 2 o'clock band, which is by far the best band I've ever directed. It's the amazing musicianship that comes out of these students is it's unbelievable. But then I was teaching jazz history and the 2 o'clock, and about 4 trumpet students at that point. And about 3 or 4 weeks into it, a colleague of mine had to take family medical leave due to some medical issues, and the dean asked the faculty to nominate somebody to potentially be the interim chair, and I became interim chair of the jazz division at University of North Texas, which I still have to pinch myself just to realize that. And then recently, I haven't put it on Facebook because I'm going to do it in September, but the dean asked me to be the chair starting in September. So I'll do that for the next 4 years.
That is super awesome.
Thanks. It's cool. It's great. But just the amazing musicianship from the 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and all the students. It's scary, and it's scary how big it is. There's 1,640 music majors.
Yeah, so how's having that many music majors and different jazz ensembles? How are you guys adapting to this new online structure?
Well, I think as far as ensembles, luckily we pretty much had met all our FTEs, which are the hours. Since a lot of ensembles at any school, they're usually only worth 1 credit hour.
Right.
So even though we rehearse 4 times a week. So by the time we got to spring break and when all this went down, we had added up all the credit hours, and the ensembles were just taken care of, rather than burden the students with music appreciation questions and making them do, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The students were stressed out enough as it is. So we just thought our deans or the whole dean's team, we really thought that in the better interest of the students to just like, okay, ensembles are done, and you get your grade based on where we were. And so that was the ensembles. As far as teaching, this is when we've all gotten to know Zoom. And it's a challenge for me. It's a challenge for a lot of the students because a lot of them don't have internet speed fast enough. A lot of them don't have the setups. So I'm lucky that I've always been sort of a gear crazy person. So I have a good Shure microphone that's here.
There you go.
And it's a KSM 32, and then I have a Royer 122 that I play into over here. So Anyway, now I messed that up. So, but yeah, it's working out great, and it's made a lot of people learn how to do recordings, the Brady Bunch thing with all the boxes. And
Right.
I've got one that's coming out probably tonight with the 2 o'clock band. So that's the first time that people have heard this probably. So the students have all sent me the things, and I've learned Adobe Premiere over the weekend, and I've done the best I can. And between that and Pro Tools, it's been great.
Yeah. So I know you have a great setup there, and I know you have another great setup outside with your grill. A few weeks ago, you posted a couple of great photos of the steaks and everything you're grilling out there. So what's your favorite food item to grill?
Favorite food item to grill is steak, and fillets
Okay.
because I just love a fillet. But those were I think just ribeyes, and they were good. It actually turned out really well. It's just, I've gotten used to it, and you know how in before when I was in the Chicago area, wouldn't really grill out in the winter time. So the good thing here is I can kind of keep it going. Been
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Because when I'm from Michigan, I remember when I was in high school, it's like negative whatever degree in Michigan. And I opened the garage door. I got the hibachi out there, my snowmobile suit. I'm going to grill. But
That's right.
yeah, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But so are you a gas or charcoal kind of guy? I know it's kind of a debatable topic, but
Well, I have one of those grills that's got the charcoal on one side and gas, but unfortunately, and I bought the charcoal and the lighting fluid and everything, but I haven't used that side. I think I really like the charcoal better, but the convenience is just so much hipper with the gas. This at this house we don't have it hooked into the house gas, so I have to always make sure I have an extra propane can or bottle or whatever you call them.
yeah, because we used to be all charcoal and everything. I used to have a massive charcoal gas smoker system. It was like 10 foot. It was amazing. But then after having kids, I have kids now, 5, 3, and 1. I don't have time to grill really occasionally, but so it's all gas now for me just because the convenience factor, as you said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow.
But yeah, so I'm getting hungry now. So, so anyways, let's get some questions. People, so what's happening? People have sent in questions through email. Some have sent
Okay.
in some Facebook messages, and some are going to be live questions as we go, very casual. One of the questions that came in was, what was it like performing with like the Chicago Symphony Orchestra or the New York Philharmonic? What was it like playing with them?
Oh, it was a total just it was unbelievable. The I think the I'll talk about New York first. Um, it was really scary because Chris called me to go up and do this, and it was Ellington's Harlem is the piece, and so last minute they had to make this change, and Chris knew me from Chicago, so he just called and he said I could stay at his place, and it worked out where he was going to leave to go do a recital with Phil Smith. So I just took care of his cat for that whole week there. So, but it was just another unbelievable experience, just knowing that here I'm staying in Chris Martin's house and practicing in Chris Martin's little studio, and because he's such an amazing musician and trumpet player and a super nice guy. So then going over to the hall the first time, I was just a nervous wreck because I'd never played over there. I didn't know anyone. And they were so cool and so nice to me. That was the best part, is they made me feel welcome from just walking in the building. And so I got my horn out, started warming up. And luckily I had played that piece before with the Milwaukee Symphony, so I wasn't completely freaked out. Because I remember when I first played, I was kind of freaked out because Cat Anderson had played these parts. And it's got all this really super high stuff. So anyway, that was kind of fun doing that, and then and it ended up being a bunch of concerts for youth concerts. So all the concerts were in the day. I had no idea about that going into it. So I had every night in New York open. So I got together with Augie, one of my former students, and Tony Cadlick. It was really great just to see all those guys, and so it worked out great. As far as Chicago Symphony, I could sit and talk about this for days because
Go ahead. You're good.
I'll tell you. I'll tell everybody the first time when I got asked to do it. It would have been back in like 1990 or 89, 90. I got this call. I was living in St. Charles, Illinois. I got this call from Rosemary. She goes, hi, Rob. My name is Rosemary, and I'm the personnel manager for the Chicago Symphony. Eric Kunzel wants to know if you might be available to come play Screech lead. And I always hated that term.
Screech lead. Okay.
That was
All right.
Eric's term. And I go, well, yeah, when is it? She goes, tonight.
Oh,
And I go, really? She goes, and I said, well, when's the rehearsal? She goes, it's going on now. Can you get here? I go, well, I live in St. Charles. It's going to take me 45 minutes. And she goes, that's okay. When you get here, just park right by the pavilion and just walk in. They'll be rehearsing. Just walk right into Ravinia and walk onto the stage, and Eric will tell you where to go.
oh.
So I got 45 minutes where I'm driving thinking, I'm from Kentucky, and I grew up, that Chicago band is really serious up there, I mean,
Yeah.
it was Bud Herseth, all those people. And so anyway, so I'm thinking, I'm going to walk on the stage. So I did, and that's what happened. Eric cut him off and said, Rob, here you go. Thanks for being here. And George Vosberg was there. And George was playing the first parts at that point. So I just sat down in the chair, and I started screwing on my bigger mouthpiece because I thought, oh, well, George is here. I don't have to play. And I just looked at George, and I said, well, what part do you want me to play? And he just went like that.
Ooh.
So then I'm screwing on my small mouthpiece again. And we're playing all the stuff that Vinny recorded with the Cincinnati Symphony, or all the big band swing stuff. So it was a ball. I mean, getting to play that the first time and getting to play with all my heroes, Dale Clevenger and Jay Friedman and Mulcahy, all these cats. It was just really something. So that was the first time. And then I'll tell you the last time I've done West Side Story, the movie, with them a few times. And the way I got that gig the first time was Wayne was supposed to go do it, or he was asked about going to Chicago because he had just done it in New York and in Hollywood, or at the Hollywood Bowl, but he couldn't do the Chicago one. He recommended me, and I went and did it. And that was with Chris Martin. Chris and John and Taga were playing, I think, or Mark might have been playing, but that was really a real crazy show to play. It's a lot harder than the Broadway show, and you can hear it within the first 5 minutes of that movie if you watch it. It's just and having that percussion wrapped all around us, and then hitting that pre-prologue, whatever the first thing is called, it's just like louder, and you end on a high F sharp. You're just holding this F sharp. I'm like, man, whatever you do, don't mess this up. And so the F sharp's coming in the percussion, and then it's off. And then it was pretty cool. The best thing is playing, hearing yourself in that hall, and with that brass section like lining right up with you, and it gives me chills till today. I mean, it's something I'll always remember.
Yeah, that's crazy. I even got little butterflies when you were talking about 45 minutes. And then you
Yeah.
have to get there. I'm thinking, oh boy.
Yeah, that was really something. I was like, man, it's just hard to believe.
Yeah,
But
so
it was
go
great.
ahead. So those are some short-term like emergency calls. So in a typical setting, if Milwaukee, or like you said, or someone calls, what's your preparation like? What lead time do you have to prepare?
Oh, well, usually you have it depends. Usually you'll have like a month or two, you'll know, and then they'll send you, within the last few days, they'll send you the music via PDF, and I blast it out, and then go through whatever the show is. Usually if it would be either Pixar or West Side Story, and for those types of concerts. And then sometimes when they're regular Pops concerts, you'll get the PDFs, and I'm like, oh yeah, I played that. That's so the movie thing and the Broadway type shows, those are the more challenging for me, or for anybody really, because But the good thing is you can prepare pretty well. You get the music and you just turn it on and you play along with it.
Yeah.
And you can find all kinds of various recordings of and videos when you hunt them down, Pixar in concert, and at least it gives you a real good idea. And the good thing is they're all done with click track because they have to mesh,
Yeah.
syncopate with the movie, so it's not going to be faster or slower. The hardest part about West Side Story is the mambo because it's really slow in the movie. And there is a story about that, but I can't remember the complete story. But it's really slow. So, but then the last time I did it, when I did Chicago, and it's actually on my webpage. They did mambo or symphonic dances, and I played that. And this conductor was so fast. I was like, wow, this is kind of fun. It's really fast though. So and it worked. It really sounded good. So anyway, as far as preparation, I think you usually have more time than a lot of things. But I found my career as a trumpet player has always been the last minute call. I got the last time I think I played with Chicago. It was Monday. A lot of my students that were at Capital University, they'll remember this. It was a Monday. I got home and I was getting ready to eat, and my voicemail just showed up. You know how sometimes it didn't ring or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the Chicago Symphony personnel manager wondering if I was in town. He goes, "You're probably not in town, but any chance you could be in town? Could you give me a call?" And I called him. "Any way you could be in town tomorrow?" I was in Columbus, that's 6 hours away. And I said, let me see. And it was going to cost a fortune to try to book miles or use all. It was going to cost me 60,000 miles to do a 45-minute flight. So I said no. And they were able to recuse me from that first rehearsal. And it was Singing in the Rain. So it was playing Singing in the Rain. And then the other concert was symphonic dances. So they way they did it, they do 2 days here and 2 days this. And I got to hear the CSO play Bartok Concerto. So the first rehearsal, they were doing that right after we played symphonic dances. So I'm sitting in the hall, and they're all in their street clothes, and they're playing Concerto for Orchestra, and I'm the only one in the hall. And I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, that's their piece. So I mean, they sound great on everything, but yeah, the Singing in the Rain has that Yuan Racy solo. It's about 3/4 the way through the movie. And it's something I didn't even know was there until I got there. So that was one of those things that you just got to hunt it down and try to learn it as quick as you can.
Yeah. In terms of preparation, I know we touched on that slightly. Is there any tips for any kids? Like if mentally, how do you prepare for the big performances as far as anxiety, or how do you prepare?
I think I being ready, like just when you get to that first rehearsal, you know the music. You need to know it. Otherwise, you're going to be a nervous wreck. And I've been in that when it's these last minute things. It's like, okay, especially Singing in the Rain, had never played it. And I don't even think I had ever really seen it, unfortunately. And so I get in there and I feel completely unprepared just because wasn't able to play through all the music and practice wherever the tricky spots. I didn't even know where the tricky spots would be. So I think the best thing is being prepared is the number one thing that will help you not be so anxious and nervous on the gig. And being prepared is not just about the music for that gig, but being prepared to do anything at any time. I think that was one of the things I learned most from Vince all those years is you got to be ready to do anything, whether it be playing lead or playing a solo or being able to play in orchestral. And then I took that further when I moved to Chicago and then started doing a lot of recording sessions and jingles and stuff. And at that point, we just had pagers. We didn't have phones. So
Yeah.
the pager go off and you show up and you don't know what you're going to have to play. I mean, they say trumpet and mutes. They'd say that's all you get. Trumpet,
Trumpets and mutes.
yeah, and trumpet, mutes, and flugelhorn maybe. And you'd get there and then all of a sudden it's all these high notes, or you might get there and it's a orchestral thing. You walk in there and it's half the Chicago Symphony brass section, and we're going to play a McDonald's spot. So and it might be the easiest thing, but you never know what it's going to be. So you always have to be prepared to play anything. So I still do that here. It's a little harder because I haven't had a whole lot of gigs in Texas, and especially now nobody's got any gigs, unfortunately.
Very true.
So I'm just constantly just trying to keep everything back, or keep everything where it was. So
Yeah, so you touched on, being ready at any time. So as far as your warm up, is that different? Like if you're just teaching, you have a specific warm up, and then you have gig day warm up, or is it always the same?
I'm kind of a creature of habit. I do the same warm up. I've been doing the same warm up since 1983, 84 for the most part. And it's not really as much of a warm up, but it's a routine of just mostly flow studies and staying the same. Everything was all. I have my what I call my position one, which is at G in the staff, and that's where if I can stay that same way down to low F sharp and then up to high G, all in that same position, everything works pretty well with me. Now I know there's a lot of talk about a lot of people trying to get their positions to be at C in the staff, or be set up that way. But for me, what works best for me is to just be set up where everything works great. The first notes that come out of my horn are usually a F concert, and I just do flow studies, very similar to Chickowitz flow studies, and then I do a range building thing, and I end up playing up to high G's, high A's on a regular basis, so that I think it's more in the head thinking, okay, it's all there still, because it's not going to go away. But I really believe that if you have to play high every day, if that's what if that's part of your of your living.
Yeah, so you touched on keeping your range consistent between double G and low F sharp. We have a specific question here that kind of touches on that. So so someone said, I have trouble with my high A flats and Gs, but my double A is always there. Is that common, or is there some people have specific notes that just aren't perfect for them?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have what we consider sort of a break. I mean, for years I could not play an A flat, and I really wanted to play it because the chart, the Thad Jones chart, that's meeting place. Because Vince always made a big deal about that chart, and started da 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 on high G, da. I could always do great on it, da 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 da, and we would never come out. But I could get A's to come out. And so the way I kind of worked through that was by just in this warm-up or in these range studies, just trying to push towards it, but not crush. I think that was one of the things that some of my colleagues, when I was in school at Kentucky, they were just like, just make it happen. And that really messed me up a little bit until I got to Northern Illinois and was doing my master's degree. I was more about trying to play a lot of different music. That was the big thing. So it wasn't just playing lead, but it was playing, brass quintet, orchestra, and wind ensemble, and trying to make sure everything was working right. And I think that really helped, mainly because it was working efficiently. It really helped start getting those notes to come out. I remember at Northern, when we were playing one piece every night at the end, and it would go up to da da da, it was like up to G sharp to A, da da da, and we'd play it as obnoxious as we could. I remember Vizzuti said to us one time, he said, man, we go around, we do all these clinics talking to these kids about how to play the trumpet right, and then we do that.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, that's how I really got the high A's to really come out, just by barking them out at one point. But as I've gotten older and smarter, I think, or more efficient, work, the less work, the better. I think that's what Easy is good. That's what Vince used to say.
Easy.
Probably still says.
He does still say that, and that's a good thing.
So I was like trying to figure out how to make it easy. So I don't know if that really answered the question, but I've been able to help students face to face more with those kinds of issues.
Yeah, so like, range, of course, as a lead trumpet player is a tool that you have. Another person has a question about how would you teach like a freshman or sophomore in college shakes? So if they're just starting getting like West Side Story or whatever, and they have a shake all of a sudden, how do you start to teach that?
Well, that's great because I recently had to do that with a few of my students here even. I think finding you can do it. I will usually have them do it on an A above the stem, go ba without moving the hand, ba, so they
Okay.
can see how it works, and then I'll have them do it by moving the realistically the way it was, because you don't go do yo do yo do yo do
Right.
do do then then we're into orchestral mode, and that doesn't really fit that style of music. So they have to learn to be coordinated enough to be able to get their hand going, because the hand is what's really going to make that shake sound right. And so that's what I find the most is it's like just spend some time, and I'll have a student who will get it and they understand how it is, but they really aren't real good with their hand. And so I said, you just got to mess with it and listen to things so you hear what the sound is, and then try to make it happen on your own. So yeah, shakes. It's a that can be kind of a tricky thing to teach young people. And classical, not as much anymore. But like 25 years ago, I'd be on a pops concert or something, and the classical trumpet players might not really know how to do shakes because they're thinking more lip slur kind of thing.
Right.
But now I really believe, because of education and jazz education across the entire spectrum of music, and young people graduating today, even these great orchestral players, they can swing,
Right.
you know, and you see it with a lot of the orchestras. I mean, New York, man, when we had swing parts, it was not straight. It was really swinging, and that was the kind of cool thing. And Chicago too. So
Yeah. Yes, that's cool. So, of course, we shakes are important. We have another teaching tool someone, a younger student, sent in. As far as teaching range, you talked about flexibility. You want to be able to have the same set from F sharp to high G. How would you teach a freshman or sophomore in college to start extending the range?
I think I've worked on that with the second part of my warm up, which starts on low F sharp, and it just goes. I haven't played today. I could probably play a little bit of it, but this thing's freezing. But it's more like I won't start at low F sharp because I'll sound really bad.
It's okay.
But like. So that I didn't even have my Royer on, but could you hear that? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, so what it is? It's like 135, 135 to the six, and then back down. And I learned this. This was a warm up that Rich Illman gave me many years ago, and
Yep.
it just worked for me. And if it worked for me, that's what worked. But it's not just about the warm up. But that's how I will help students learn how to expand their range. So because they'll go to as high as they can go, and because I'll do it first, then they'll do it, and then I'll go up the next half step, then they do it. So we're not doing it together, but they're hearing me, and they're hearing me hopefully sound okay, and they can model that. And that again, that goes back to lessons with Vince. He did that. He played the whole time, and even if we didn't know something really well, we knew how to kind of fake it through so that
Right.
it was like, yeah, I don't really know that, so I'm just gonna back off a little there because he'll be playing with. But he was too smart. He always caught that. So, but anyway, but back to the original. I think by modeling and usually they can't play up as high as I can, efficiently. So they'll get up to like high D's, high E flats, and then things are going a little array, and then I can help them. And
Mhm.
then once they get that good E flat, then we push for the E. But it might take a whole year to get it up to a high F. But I can tell you right now, when I was at Capital University, my colleagues would hear me doing this, and they were like, "Man," because I do this at the beginning of every lesson with the student, because it's just a matter of just get us all on the same page. But by the end of the year, the colleagues would walk by and they'd say, "You know, we can't even tell which one is you," and that was
Yeah,
always
that's
the
good.
goal.
Yeah.
So they just know that I would go first, but it was like you could, and that's the best part about of teaching. It was just these students were really getting it and really have a really good sound, and they know how to teach range, and they know how to teach good sound and good brass playing, and that was the goal there, because it was mostly music ed students that I had, and they were great students and really hard workers. So.
Yeah, it was cool. You mentioned Rich Shulman. He's a creature of habit. He was my professor at Michigan State.
Oh,
Uh,
really? I didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah. So I've known Rich for a very long time. It's super fun now because, like, when I was at Michigan State, I subbed a lot as a second trumpet with Lansing Symphony. Rich was playing principal. We're going back doing Trike 4, lots of stuff. And then now his sister still lives down in Lexington, Kentucky. So he comes on to visit and he'll play some rock gigs with me. And that's always super fun because it's role reversal. Suddenly I'm taking the lead and he's over here. It just feels weird. It's like, you're my teacher. You should be, but he still sounds amazing. He still does the same warm up as you said. And, even to this day, he can get it done.
Yeah, he's an amazing trumpet player. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him, really, because I studied with him going to Foster Music Camp back in 79, 80. So that's how I got to know Rich.
Yeah, and I know Vince is listening. He'll appreciate this too. So, because Rich was Vince's first TA when he was at Kentucky. In my first semester at Kentucky during my doctorate, I was the TA to the director of graduate school, and I had to go through the old contracts and stuff and the old records, and I found Rich's first ever TA contract. And I texted, I showed him, I was like, man, it was $500 for a semester. Wasn't a lot of money, but it was definitely good to see that. It's like, whoa, it's gotten better a little bit.
That's great. That's amazing.
But anyways, so another person asked, so what are some of your favorite pieces to perform?
Hmm. Uh, de- Depends on, I guess, the style. I think favorite pieces to. Well, I like playing just I like playing the Halsey Stevens a lot. I like playing the Kennon. That, as far as like trumpet kind of pieces. As far as like big band pieces, like anything Dennis McCrell writes is swinging, and it is just so well written, and the lead trumpet parts are just right. They're not super high, but but you feel really good when you're just soaring on top. Um, so I guess more specific would be "And That's That" is the name of a tune. So you guys could search that. It's the Count Basie band playing "And That's That," and Byron Stripling is playing lead on this, and he sounds freaking amazing. And Dennis McCrell is playing drums. My colleague who teaches here, Lynn Seaton, is playing bass, and it is the most swinging. You can't. It won't swing any harder. And it was the same rhythm section that was doing all the Diane Shure CDs when that first came out, and so anyway, "And That's That" is a great swinging tune. Um, as far as like the pop stuff, I always liked playing Chicago with a pops orchestra, because you get to stand up and you're by yourself playing it, wah 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 wah, and it's a little more fun with an orchestra. When you're playing the show, it's the show, and
Right.
actually the show is good too, because there's dancers and stuff. So it's really a great show. So
Yeah, since you're a very diverse player, as you mentioned, Kenan, Halsey Stevens, and of course you play lead, you do Broadway, lots of different things. Where did you get your sound concept, and who was your musical influences?
Well, my biggest influence probably was Vinny when I was in school. Boy, I didn't mean to turn this into a Vince commercial, but Vince, he'll send me my payment. No. But no, I think my whole concept was Doc Severinsen. Before that, Maynard Ferguson, as you can see, new vintage. I but I remember hearing Maynard for the first time. It was like I think I was a freshman in high school, and somebody played it. We were at band camp. Somebody played a record, and I didn't even know that a trumpet could be played like that. Honest to goodness, man, it was just amazing. And then I used to all through high school I would try to play along with those records. I think a lot of people did back then. And that's something that's missing today in jazz education is there's not the Maynard Ferguson out there traveling and making all these young people want to like sit and scream with their stereos,
Very true.
you know. But it was more Maynard, that big fat rich sound. And then as I got a little older, Conrad Gazzo is my favorite lead trumpet player. I mean, it doesn't get any better than those Sinatra records with Gazzo. And Charlie Turner, another great lead trumpet player. In fact, I have one of his horns. It's an old Benge, Benge, Burbank Benge 3, and it's, man, I play that thing, and it has that old Benge sound. It's great. I haven't played that in a while. I have to find that and pull it out. But yeah, that probably as far as trumpet playing, lead trumpet playing, thinking that was kind of where I got my concept from. So listening to different lead players and trying to imitate them the best I could.
Yeah, you mentioned, touring musicians. That's where I kind of grabbed onto what my sound concept is because, high school, Al Vizzuti was always one of my favorite. But then when I got to college, my first semester, Doc Severinsen was coming into town live, Snooky Young, all those guys. So my parents got me, we were like fourth row seats, and Doc comes out. I can still remember this in this yellow alligator suit. Like it's yellow, it's yellow. The whole thing, and he was the whole day at night. He was just playing into my face. At that time, I was like, "That's
Yeah.
it."
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I can imagine that. I think I forgot to say, but Alan Vizzuti was a huge influence on me coming out into college because we got to know him through Vince, and he would be down all the time playing. And he was my hero. What he could do is what I always wanted to do, which was play all classical and all jazz and be able to do everything. And in fact, I had a lot to do with getting him up to NIU when I was at NIU as a grad student. Ron Modell, who he said, who do you think we should get? I go, you got to get Alan Vizzuti. And so he was up there for a week. So I was getting piccolo trumpet lessons, all kinds. It was great hanging with him. So big influence.
Yeah, see here. You mentioned some of that stuff. I'm just going through them. I want to make sure I don't miss anyone's specific questions. Here's a good one. So after college, how did you get your break into college teaching?
So I think I graduated. I got my master's degree, and then I taught beginning band students for a company that offers band in parochial schools. So I would teach. I would go out and start kids on trumpet, and that was what I did for a year. Well, then I find out that Chicago State University had a position, and a colleague of mine who taught trombone at NIU used to teach there, and he told me about this position. So it was just trumpet, and I think it was going to be jazz. It was jazz band because Bunky Green was there, but he was just on a leave at that point. So I applied for this job and ended up getting it. So I was out a year before I got into the college teaching. My goal was to be just like what we saw at UK. I wanted to teach trumpet and direct the jazz band. That was like, that's not work, that's fun. And I think the biggest thing there was I got the job at Chicago State, and then I was there 2 years, and then my chairperson had at Chicago State, she had done her master's, I think, at Roosevelt University, and she told me about the position at Roosevelt, which was chair of jazz. And I was like, I don't even know anything about Roosevelt at that point. I was like, I didn't know hardly that they were there. So I applied for that job and then got lucky and got offered that and started in January of '93. And I taught there until 2010. And we really built the program, and it kind of hit the apex, not to use that word, it seems to be the word of the day these days, right around 2005, 2006. And then various other things started happening that kind of made it challenging everywhere in higher education at that time. But so yeah, I was really lucky to get that and have it be, full-time tenure track. I got tenured in 2000, and then then it kind of promoted up to associate there, and then I took the job at Capital University. Main reason I took the job at Capital University was I had done everything in Chicago, and I knew that things weren't going as well at the university for what I wanted to do. And so I thought it was really exciting to go teach classical trumpet to music ed majors, get back to what I originally was into. And so I did that for those 10 years there. And it was really great just working on regular senior recitals, not jazz recitals and
Right.
all that. So that was a lot of fun. So that's how I got into the college teaching thing. And then this job came about, and I wasn't going to apply for it. But there were some challenging situations happening at my former university there, and so I thought, you know what, I'll just send my name in and I'll apply for this and see if I even get an interview. Mainly because it said lead trumpet emphasis, and I'm like, well, I do that, so maybe I qualify. And so luckily I got interviewed and got offered the job, and I'm very happy to be here. And who would have ever thunk a year ago that I'd be here, and even who would have thunk that I'd be the division head at Jazz Studies. So
That's still awesome, though, just saying your musical journey between, the other schools, and then go to Capital. Now you're UNT, which is a phenomenal school. Um,
yes.
So let's see, you're leading into the next question here. Let's see here. Oh, here's a good one. So you're at UNT now. You teach jazz. So what's next? Do you have any recording projects? What's next for you personally that's coming up in the future?
The biggest thing is I want to do a recording project of I want to bring my Ensemble 9 back. It was a recording that we did back in the 2000s, and actually it got a lot of airplay and it made it to the second part of the Grammys. It didn't get nominated for a Grammy, but it was back then you'd have to go through all these stages. So we made it pretty far up. We had a lot of really good airplay. So I want to do that. And that's mostly so that I can apply for full professor at some point here, because we have to kind of keep our scholarly activities going on. So, and that's something I've been wanting to do anyway. So I'm hoping that I can get some of my friends here at UNT that will want to write some 9-piece charts, and I want to do it in Chicago, because all my best friends are in Chicago as far as musicians, because I've worked with them for over 20 years, and I can get them to do it as a favor. No.
Well, that's great stuff. And someone just reminded me we haven't talked about Mouthpieces yet, so we have to mention Mouthpieces. So do you have one mouthpiece you play for all scenarios, or you currently have a few different options depending on the style you have to play?
Well, I play on this mouthpiece, and it's a Pickett Parton 1, and it has the Reeves sleeves on it. Mostly because for a lot of years, I was playing a lot of vintage horns where the receivers were inconsistent. So that was why I had decided to go with the sleeves. My mouthpiece, I guess, I can tell you the story where it came from. I mean, originally, when I was in college, I went to George Hurst Music, and and I saw these Warburtons, and I wanted a Warburton. Why? Because Vince had Warburtons, and
Yeah.
we all wanted to have all the parts to screw around, but they were expensive. And they still are. But so I got a Warburton 6S and played that because I think somebody had said, yeah, sounds about right. Well, so I had that, and then bought two backbores. I had one for marching band and one for symphonic band or whatever, and so it was a 6S. So what I play on today is pretty much the same as that 6S rim. It's been altered a bit. I think first time I had it copied, I had Scott Lasky copy it, and I had him change a little bit of the contour on the rim so that it wasn't so it wasn't so sharp, and then had that for years, and then had Jeff Park copied it because we were going to do some stuff with John Hagstrom. We were doing a whole bunch, trying to do some marketing long time ago. So Jeff made a copy of it, but then also adjusted a couple things that worked well. And then I had this backbore that Vince gave me, and this backbore, it was a Schilke backbore that Scott made. Well, Scott had already left Schilke, and I was working with Carl Hammond, and I was like, man, is there any way we can copy this backbore? And Carl, we didn't have the tool for it. And so I went over to see Scott, and I go, hey, man, do you have that tool for this? And he went in the back, and he checked, and he came out and goes, nope, don't have it. And so that was the only backbore that worked. And so then I find out that Peter could copy backbores. That was amazing. So I made an appointment, I guess it might have been about 8 to 10 years ago, and drove down, and he scanned in the backbore. And so while I was there, I said, well, why don't you just do the top two? And then I was also playing a Bach Mount Vernon 8.5C. And I said, why don't you copy this? He goes, yeah, I'd like to. I've never seen that. And it was huge, really big in terms of the depth of the cup. And so he copied it, and then sent them to me. And well, the first one of my money mouthpiece, it was like dead on right away. The backbore and the top, immediately I played it all the time. It was just really amazing. And then the classical one, I played it. I took it to play it on this commencement thing, a gig for like nursing, College of Nursing or something. And I barely could make it through that whole concert. That whole thing, because I was just dying my corners, and I didn't know what was up. I didn't even think that it was the mouthpiece, but somehow I was talking to Peter a couple days later, and I said, man, I don't know. I was dying. He goes, I think I know how to fix that. And he goes, and so what he did is took the bottom and just brought it up a little bit, and man, it was dead on. So that's how I've gotten to know Pickett mouthpieces and you guys. So it's been really great, and I just kind of stick with my same mouthpiece. I warm up on my small mouthpiece. I don't warm up on the big mouthpiece, and I do that because I really believe that learning how to play this mouthpiece, even though it's a small mouthpiece, you're still playing down the low, learning how to keep your lips out of it and doing that. I have a tendency when I play my big mouthpiece, and if I do the warm up on it, then more lips go into the mouthpiece. And then when I switch and start playing the small mouthpiece, it's an adjustment. But all the rims are relatively the same now. For years and years, I would play exactly the same rim. I had 3-piece mouthpieces so that I could I was, I wasn't that smart, so I just knew, well, I screwed on, it's the exact same rim, it's got to be the same, But as I've gotten, I've probably practiced harder now, and I'm able to switch off these from a smaller mouthpiece to a little wider rimmed mouthpiece. So there's your mouthpiece answers.
That's good. That's good stuff. And on the mouthpieces, I would a question from a younger student. So if a high schooler is playing like a Bach 3C, just something standard, and then they want to start into lead, what mouthpiece do you start kids on, and where do you kind of start them?
I think that's a really good question, because too many band directors out there start giving them the 14A 4As, which aren't even anywhere near, like, the rim is so different. So I tend to at that point I would have them try probably whatever I have in my. I have too many mouthpieces, but I would probably have them try one of the Pickets that where the rim is about the same as the 3C, but maybe just a little bit shallower, not super shallow, and then a little tighter backbore. And I have all the backbores at school, so whether it's a college student or a real young a junior in high school, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just what you guys do all the time, fitting. And I mean, I had, when I went to Northern Illinois, I was one of Terry's, and I think I'm still on his website as somebody who can do fittings. I remember Ben Smalley teaching me how to do that, and as well as Kenny. Those guys are great, and they were just kind of teaching you how to do a fitting with a student. And so I'm able to do that, and I've been able to do that. A lot of my high school kids that I had in the last 15 years, they all have pretty good setups, and it's not like putting on the old classic jet tone. Although some of
Right.
those were okay, I could never play them, but
Right. Well, yeah, that's great stuff. Our philosophy is very similar to yours, especially like younger kids. They contact us constantly. You know, they want high notes, they want this and that. But I try to encourage them to play something middle of the road, get structurally sound, and then venture into something shallow. Because I found if you have a student who's too young and you give them a lead mouthpiece or something, not shallow mouthpiece too soon, it can really mess them up because they'll
exactly.
manipulate and change things just because it's shallow, but that's not the point. So as you said, I think it's very um, important that if they like play a 3C, let's venture to like a 3D, just something subtle. And then of course, build in the compression to the backbore. That's a great option as well.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because even with my personal students, I have 300 mouthpieces here. I have a lot of mouthpieces, and they're always like, "Ooh, I want to try that one." Or like, "Nope." It's like they want to try the Maynard Fergusons and the Ingrams, which they're phenomenal mouthpieces, but they're super specialized.
Right,
And
exactly.
yeah, so there's a tool for that, but you're not there yet. You need this before you eventually get to there.
Yeah, I think the thing about my mouthpiece setup has been more about virtuosity, being able to play many different styles almost on the same mouthpiece. Um, it's just, I mean, if I open my case, which I haven't had to do in a while because of just leave the trumpets out right now, but I have a mouthpiece pouch that has about 12 mouth or no, about 10 mouthpieces in it, and all of them are for a special use. So if I'm playing C trumpet with an orchestra, I want to make sure I can blend with those guys and not have them like behind my back. Oh man, did you hear this lead player trying to blend and trying to play C trumpet? So I mean, I believe it gets back into like knowing what the right equipment for the right job, and practice all those instruments. So every day I practice the piccolo trumpet, every day I practice the B flat trumpet, and every day I practice my C trumpet. I recently wasn't practicing C trumpet. I went 4 months without playing the C trumpet, which is very odd for me. But once I moved down here, I wasn't playing in anything like that. So I had to make myself start going back to practicing the C trumpet, because when I came back to it, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I remember this. And luckily, I have a great horn. It's all set up great, so it's all cool.
Yeah, that's a great point of practicing many different horns. So, a question that you kind of touched on. So, when you're going to play with a symphony, you have to play some classical stuff. Of course, you play the C trumpet, a little larger mouthpiece. So, you change equipment for that situation. But do you structurally with you, do you change how you play it all, or do you have all the differences and alterations, equipment, not you?
It's mostly about the equipment and getting your mind into that mode, because it's a different mode when you're playing classical, and trying to blend and trying to have that big fat sound, which I've learned a lot of that from John Hagstrom, who we've worked together a lot, and he talks about how to play second trumpet, and so I try to take all of those concepts when I'm in that position. Usually it's playing fourth trumpet on whatever it would be in the first half of the concert, and then the second half is all pop, so then I'd switch. But making sure that you're actually really doing it, and you really are playing the C trumpet. You don't want to, if for young people coming out, you don't want to just whip your C trumpet out that you really don't practice all the time and then try to fit in, because then that thing, they'll know within seconds that that's not your instrument, and you're better off just sticking with your B flat and transposing.
Right. That's a good point. And so, you have two mouthpieces we kind of talked about. You have your classical mouthpiece, the more jazz lead structured mouthpiece. If you're going to play flugelhorn, do you have the same rim diameter, or is it totally different design as well?
The flugelhorn is exact same rim, but it's flugelhorn,
Right.
cup, and I don't even know really what it is. I just know Carl made it many years ago, and it was a copy. It was a copy of my Shilky. That was the very first mouthpiece I had with my name on it. Vince took all of us to Chicago. Brad Good and I think Al Hood might not have, yeah. So we all went up to Chicago to go to the Shilky plant, and that was in Vince's S32 days. And so I wanted to get a mouthpiece with my name on it, and I needed a flugelhorn mouthpiece. So Scott made this mouthpiece, and I played it for 25 years, and it was just getting old. And then Carl was on his own, and I was trying to get everything made at Carl, and so Carl copied that mouthpiece, and I've been playing that for a long time. I need to send that down to you guys.
We could do that.
You have the technology.
We do. We definitely do. But anyways, before we wrap this up, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything from anybody. I appreciate your time. And oh yeah, one last question. It's always a favorite. Do you have any funny performance stories or any kind of road stories? Anything that just did not go to plan?
I have a good one from when I was at Capital University, and as we were doing a brass quintet concert, and it was a part that had piccolo on it, and so we did our rehearsal in the morning, and then I taught some lessons, and then one of my students, his name was Kyle actually, and he was playing, I can't remember what it was, the Fausch or something, and so I just took my Shilky piccolo at that point and was going to play along with him, but it was set up in my horn was in B flat for the concert with the brass quintet. So I put my A slide in, and I gave him a lesson and just put the horn down, and then get ready to go to the concert. About 4 hours later, I got my Shilky and all the horns are there, and we start playing this piece, and I picked up the piccolo to play, had only like 2 bars, and started playing, and it was in the wrong key in the middle of the concert. I thought I was actually having a stroke, because I was like, what is wrong? It was off. And so I get through that, and then I pick up the other, we switched out, and we get to the end of the concert, and then my colleagues in the quintet are like looking at me like, are you okay? And so I just I just go, stop. And I said, and I told the story. I go, because I gave a lesson today, I had my A slide in, and I go, I'm going to switch it back to the B flat right now, and we're going to go back to bar 67 and we're going to play it again just so that I can redeem myself. And then, so we went through it, and then and then it was going to get hard. And I go, okay, that's good. So that was, but that was really, for a few minutes, it was scary. But then it's been funny, and all my students and colleagues like to remind me of that.
That's okay. Everyone has their moment.
That's right.
So anyway, someone just messaged. She says, "So Rob, what other virtual backgrounds do you guys have?"
Oh, we got.
So what do you got?
Okay, let me see what I got here.
We'll do a little virtual background off.
Virtual. I wonder who that was. Oh, I like that. That's
You like
good.
Bob's Burgers? I got that.
I got. Let's see. I got this one. Maynard
Oh,
Ferris.
there you go.
That's old. I have this one's University of North Texas. I should have worn my mean green shirt. And I have this one. That's Alan Baylock.
Okay.
And this one is the 1 o'clock a few years
Oh,
ago.
nice.
And here's a good one. These are Charlie Turner's Mutes, and you notice they all say Sinatra on them. They were labeled Sinatra, and that's how they had to do that back in that day for some reason. But and then this is all the 1 o'clock, every 1 o'clock record up at the Jazz Museum.
Oh, that's
Sherman.
super cool.
Very cool. And then I have this one for being professional.
There you go.
Okay, show me some of yours.
Let's see. You saw Bob's Burgers. Let's see here. I got Jens.
Oh,
When he found out this picture's funny because we were at a conference about, I don't know, it was 4 years ago. He didn't realize he was actually in the brochure. So he found out he's famous. So that was pretty fun. And then I got the 3C muffler.
oh, there you go. I like that.
Yeah, it's when you need that robust tone when you're driving down the street in your 2012 Chevy Malibu.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Rob, this has been super awesome. It's great to catch up because a lot of times we just don't get to catch up. So this time is critical that we get to catch up with all of our friends and kind of see how everyone's doing.
Oh, this has been great. This has been a great escape for me, so I appreciate it. Thanks for including me for sure.
Yeah, well, you and your family stay safe. Happy grilling, and good luck, man.
You too, man.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
You too.